charges of racketeering in the American record business. In a series of reports on this program, NBC investigative reporter Brian Ross has detailed several links between the mob and the songs that make the charts.
According to figures provided to NBC News by industry sources, record companies pay independent promoters, many with Mafia connections, almost $80 million a year. $80 million. And with this has come a climate of fear in the rock music business.
Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons.
You know, growing up, I always knew what I wanted to do. I had no idea how I was going to get to where I wanted to go. I came from a family that both my parents, neither of them that I have ever seen except for maybe Christmas, they had a little bit of wine and a glass with soda. So my father never went into bars, or neither did my mother. And when I told my parents that I wanted to get involved in the music business, and I wanted to be a singer, my father did not really appreciate the music I was listening to. I grew up in a neighborhood where there was so much organized crime, and I knew everybody. I mean, because I've worked in all the little saloons, and most of those guys own those places. And even the Copacabana was loaded with wise guys all the time. And through the years, I mean, people thought I was connected, and I was with this family or that family, and I was with no family. I had guys that liked me, but I always kept a distance. Anybody wanted to do anything for me or get me a job would come to me and say, "Hey, listen, you guys want to work in Vegas?" I said, no, we're fine. We have all the work we need and all that. So I never really got myself involved, but I did have some very, very close friends, and if I named the names of these guys, you'd know every one of them. They think, you know, because you might be very close to somebody, that they own you or you're with somebody. The way I grew up in the heart of Newark, and it was a very heavily populated, organized crime situation. Now, all the places that I worked before there was any success were little bars and saloons that they called clubs. You got to know everybody. I mean, I've had FBI visits. How come we saw you with this guy? I said, what's your connection? Are you in that family? I said, I'm in no family, I said. They were my friends right to the very end. The greatest thing that ever happened for me is growing up as the one guy that's in Jersey Boys, Chip DiCarlo. He was like the guardian angel, and he had certain people he just liked a lot, and he didn't want anybody to do anything to hurt them in any way. And he was a guy that stood up for me. If anybody, he made sure that nobody came around and gave me any crap. Now, for most of my life, I never knew that was going on. He always said to me, he says, if anybody asks you if you're with anybody, you're with nobody. And that's when, I mean, right up, he went to prison. He was in Atlanta federal prison, and I went down there with the group and did a couple shows in the prison. He was in the can. I mean, you know, his kids were like my own kids. And I knew his wife and all of his family ever since I was a kid. Why should I ask everybody what they do? The big problem in the world is everybody has their nose in everybody else's business. I was visited by the FBI, and they wanted to know why I was in this restaurant, sitting down having a drink with John Gotti. Well, I walked in a restaurant, and he saw me, he said, hey, how you doing? He says, come on over and have a drink. And the agent at the time said to me, said, well, do you know who he is and what he does? I said, I don't know anything except what I read, and he never did anything to me. And he offered to buy me a drink. I said, what do you want me to do? I said, everybody that wants to buy me a drink, should I ask them what they do for a living? I said, certainly you do realize that I'm a performer. That's what I do. I said, I pay my taxes. I said, do you think these guys call me up and say, come over, we want to tell you what we're doing next week? So he laughed about it, and he said, well, he said, you know, I'm just doing my job. He said, by the way, he said, will you sign this thing for my kid?